talking today to Antisense Therapeutics, ASX code ANP. In particular, we're talking to Dr. Gil Price, who is a consulting medical director for Antisense Therapeutics based in the United States. Now, Dr. Price, prior to your involvement with Antisense, you were a non-executive director of Sarepta Therapeutics, who of course are the biggest player in the world of Duchenne muscular dystrophy treatments. And when you were with that company, you helped guide it through a transition from an $80 million company to a multi-billion-dollar market cap company post its first approved drug for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Could you give us a sense of your experience at Sarepta and how that shaped your view on Antisense Therapeutics and your involvement with this Australian company?
Thanks. Well, Tim, first, let me just say how grateful I am that you would give us this moment. Antisense has a wonderful story, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it, and so grateful that you would have me here. So if you think about Sarepta and Antisense and where I started with Sarepta and where we are with Antisense, they're remarkably similar. You know, Sarepta, when I started with them, was really a very small company, managing every penny very carefully. And in many ways, that's kind of where Antisense is. So the idea is, how did we move the ball at Sarepta from this small company that's watching every penny on the budget line to this multi-billion-dollar market cap company? How did we do that? What were the processes that we engaged? And how can we apply that thinking and those processes to Antisense? So the big one is just the clinical trial data, right? And making sure that we have data that is robust, that will convince the scientific community and the regulatory community that we have something here that is beneficial. In the way of Sarepta, we were looking at exon skipping. In Antisense, we're looking at inflammation. Let me give this to the folks that are watching this today. I've spent most of my life in cancer. Cancer, you know, oftentimes we think about a single target. And so in cancer, what we learn is that there's not a single target. It's very rare that there's a single drug that will address a single cancer. Almost always, it's multiple drugs, radiation, surgery. It's a multi-tiered approach. And so, again, in this case, while Sarepta was looking at exon skipping, the Antisense story is very powerful. It can be the second side of that. And so that's why I'm excited to be with Antisense and thinking about, you know, the other pathways that are available here that can have a positive impact on these boys that are ill.
Dr. Price, on the 28th of February, there was a Rare Disease Day, and we see these events in the market now, whether it's Tesla Day, there's a Rare Disease Day, you have the Jet Foundation Rare Disease Day, and of course the FDA's Rare Disease Day events. Can you talk us through the FDA meeting and what the insights you gained from that and what that could potentially mean for Antisense as well?
Sure, Tim. So if you look at rare disease, any rare disease that occurs in one in fewer than 200,000 people, by itself, you'd say, oh, gee, you know, it's a rare disease. That's why we describe it as a rare disease. But when you take a look at all rare diseases, then there are millions of individuals that are affected. So what has happened, and I'll just use the FDA as an example, other regulatory groups like EMEA, the regulatory groups in Australia, what has happened is that these regulatory groups now, and using the FDA as the meeting that I most recently attended, what they have recognized is that we describe it as rare disease, but it actually affects a large community of people. And so what is the process to address an individual rare disease? And so what FDA has done, they've come together and they've outlined their thinking of the approach to rare disease using natural history data as your background data, because oftentimes that single rare disease have very few subjects available to you. So they've offered a guidance in terms of how can you approach this? But the big thing that they've done that I'm really very happy about and very optimistic about, they've said they want to partner with you. They don't want to just give you a guidance and say, okay, follow this guidance. I was truly impressed with the individuals on the FDA side that used robust examples of their partnering with companies to say, how do we get this ball across the goal line in the most effective and most efficient way?
In January this year, one of the most respected biotech analysts in Australia, Corporate Connect's analyst Mark Sinatra, he issued a report which he upgraded the price target of antisense to around 47 cents Australian cents, that is. And that was following some news that Sarepta's therapeutical drug had failed in its clinical trial results. Can you kind of, does that sort of event improve the prospects rather for antisense and their drug?
You know, I don't want to talk so much or directly to the failure of Sarepta. There are a lot of reasons why a study can fail. But just to your question, yes, the answer is yes. The failure there highlights this alternative path that we have, which is inflammation, looking at inflammation. And by the way, we have demonstrated effect there. So the failure here, if you are a parent or a boy with Duchenne, you have to say, okay, for whatever reasons, this didn't make its endpoint, but we have an alternative here, and that's antisense. And it is a viable alternative that has been demonstrated in human clinical trials. Now, what's next? And you know, on the one hand, I was sad actually to see the failure with Sarepta. I was optimistic about that drug, and they may go back and they may see that that was a study process that caused that failure, or the wrong endpoint that caused that failure, and they may be able to correct that. I hope that they do. But in the meantime, what you have to feel very good about is that antisense going down a different pathway with the understanding and knowledge of what's happened here will be in a very good spot, I believe, moving forward.
Dr. Price, finally, what is the next steps with antisense therapeutics in regards to FDA?
So it's a great question, Tim. We have a Type C meeting scheduled with them. It's coming up in a few weeks. That Type C meeting, we propose to FDA a number of different ideas. We propose and they depose. So at the end of that proposal and deposal is we should be on very common ground. We should have common ground with one another so that we understand exactly what we intend to do in terms of study design and how we're looking at it, and dose, frequency, all of those kinds of things. And then they say, okay, or not, or they suggest changes. But at the end, and this is what we really look for, are meeting minutes that will be our template for moving forward. We'll take those minutes and we'll say, with this, that allows us to move forward on a common ground with FDA, with the regulatory group.
Thanks for your time. Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's wonderful to be a part of this, and look forward to meeting you sometime down in Australia.
Thank you.